Okay, I don't know who decided that we should go after Ryan. But, he did a fantastic job, and a lot of our stuff actually does kind of overlap, so, we'll move through it quickly, so we'll be ready for lunch. And he says it way more eloquently than I did, so.
Okay, hi, everybody. So I think you all know Lindsay, and I'm Jessica. I just wanted to start this one. So 11Q families were all in this together. I wanted to start with a poem that I'm sure you've heard before, but I think it's really relevant. It's called Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo, David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say. What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills. And Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, the very lovely things about Holland. So that's where we are. That's where we're starting, and I'm going to hand it to Lindsay.
All right, so to start out, I think our topic kind of evolved a few times as we've been talking about this when we were planning, having planning sessions with Jessica and Paul, and just some discussions that we had kind of led to this topic. And it actually overlaps beautifully with what Ryan just talked about, because the first thing that we're going to talk about, we want to talk about the whole family in this journey. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, I don't know how to use this thing. Oh, there we go. Caring for yourself as a caregiver. And we already talked about the masks on the airplane. So we know why we have to take care of ourselves first, right? Because we have to have the energy to be able to take care of our children. So there was a 2014 study by the National Institutes of Health, and it was about parents of special needs kids. And so I'm just going to show you some of the findings that they had and see if you relate to any of them. Always tired. No time for exercise or medical appointments. Don't have time to do the things they enjoy. Little energy for chores or social activities. Mental frustration and anger. High stress levels. Anxiety and depression. Feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. Worried about your child's future. Worried about your the siblings. And felt socially isolated. Does anyone relate to any of those? I'm sure we all do, at least to some. So I look at this list and I think, if my kid was going to pick out a parent, is this the one that they would pick out? Probably not. So I don't want to be that parent. I want to try and take care of myself so I'm not that parent. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about for just a minute. All right, so top 6 answers on the board. This is probably not gonna work. I tried so hard to make this work like Family Feud. It's totally not going to. But yell out some personal barriers that you have to taking care of yourself. What are some personal barriers?
No time.
No time. What else?
No energy.
No energy. Yep.
Money.
Money.
Mm-hmm.
Any other ideas? Patience. I think I've got to click on these to get them to, well, let's see. I think it's gonna- Oh, there we go. No time. Top one. Too tired. Old habits. We kind of talked about that before, that sometimes our coping mechanisms aren't always the best ones, that they become habits, right? So old habits maybe sometimes prevent us from taking care of ourselves. They don't like to ask for help. We just talked about that. We don't like to ask for help sometimes. Sometimes taking care of ourselves, we think is going to cause us more stress and guilt about taking time for ourselves. So those are our personal barriers. So now we're going to talk about some of the ways or tools that we have to try and take care of ourselves. The first one is going to be reducing stress in our lives. And that's not always easy. We have busy, stress-filled lives. That's part of the thing. But part of our lives living in Holland, there's a little bit of extra stress here. So we need to, first of all, oops, sorry, that's the wrong way. Recognize our warning signs of stress. Are we irritable? Are we having tension headaches? Are we having sleep problems, forgetfulness? Recognizing when our stress is high, what our warning signs are. And then identifying the sources of stress. Is there too much on your plate? Are you having disagreements in your family? Are there disagreements on how to raise a special needs child? Are you feeling inadequate? Like you don't have all the tools you need to take care of your child? Are there medical issues with you or your child that are causing extra stress? Do you have time for yourselves to manage that stress? So these are all sources of stress. All right. So then you need to identify what you can and cannot change in your situation. We talked about with Ryan a little bit earlier. We can't change what's happened in the past, right? We can't change decisions that we've made in the past. We can't change a medical diagnosis. There are things that we can't change, but there are some things that we can change. And so those are the things that we need to focus on. And we're not talking about we're going to be able to go from super stress to no stress in our lives in one little, making a goal one time, whatever. That's not going to happen. We have to start small, and each small little thing can help us reduce stress a little bit. So we can take action in small areas where we can. Even if you can only make one little tiny change, it can help. So it may be that you need to take a walk, to take time for yourselves. You need to try meditation. Give yourself 10 minutes every morning. Wake up 10 minutes earlier to do meditation. Take up a hobby like gardening. Find a friend that you can talk to. So this is a great opportunity to find other people who get it and that you can talk to. So find people here. You don't live by them, but that doesn't mean that you can't talk to them. You can text them, you can call them, and have someone that you can call when you're feeling super stressed or down and talk about the issues that you might be having.
Someone's calling right now.
Try and get exercise. Exercise is a great help for stress relief. Yoga, or get some extra help, either around the house with your child. Wherever you may need help, don't be afraid to ask for that help, which we just talked about. We have a hard time asking for help. Okay, so another tool that we can use is setting goals. So we have, usually when we are not taking care of ourselves, we are letting go of our physical health, our mental health, and we're not having time for ourselves. So let's talk about setting goals in each of these areas. I actually went to my primary care doctor. I had to get a new one because it had been like 10 years. So I go to the doctor every single week with one of my kids. Like it feels like all the time we're at the doctor. So I didn't make appointments for myself because I don't have time for that. So finally last year about a year ago, I went and finally found a new doctor and did all my primary care stuff so that I can take care of myself. Now, I haven't made another appointment, but I will. That could be part of my goal. So, set aside time to schedule doctor appointments for yourself. Find time to exercise, eat better, get more sleep. So I want everyone to just write down somewhere one small thing that you can do for your physical health to make a change. I feel like if you write something down, you're far more likely to follow through with it. So think of just one little thing right now. It can be tiny. Just write one thing down that you can do. All right, taking care of our mental health. Some things you can do for that, make an appointment with a therapist. Find others in your situation that you can talk to again. Lots of people here that you can talk to. One thing that I did a few years ago was I joined a special needs parent support group in my local area. And I was actually kind of nervous to join it because I felt like, well, this is a group that's been going on for a long time. I don't want to like intrude on their thing. And I just had to get past that and be like, okay, it's for anyone that has a special needs child. And it wasn't necessarily in my comfort zone, but one day I'm like, I just need to do this. I need other people to talk to. And so I went to the group, and now I've gone for the last several years. We meet once a month. It's that we all have special needs children, all different levels. And it is really helpful. It's really helpful to have other people to talk to around me, especially like that have kids in the same school district and stuff like that. So an exercise, that's one thing that I haven't done very well, but I'm gonna get back on. I'm gonna try. So now take a minute to write one thing that you can do for your mental health. One little thing, even if it's just getting a phone number of someone here that you can text or call later, just write down one thing. All right, and then taking time for myself. So this is, Ryan went into this, that we need to take time for ourselves. If we don't take time for ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of our children. We have to have time that's something just for us. So when I was, after Zachary was born, we were kind of just, that's all I did. All I did was go to therapy appointments and doctor's appointments or hospital stays. That was just my life. All my friends were therapists. And I realized that I needed something for me. I was Braden and Zachary's mom. I was not Lindsay. And so I decided I needed something for me. And so at that point, I was like, oh, well, what do I want to do? And so I decided at that point that I wanted to take a pottery class. And so it was hard to figure it out how it was going to work with my schedule with all the doctor's appointments. There was no way I could do it during the day. Because I had the kids and then my husband's work. We had to figure it out, but we did figure it out. And I started taking a pottery class. So that was just for me. So now, besides being a special needs parent, I can also call myself a potter. It's something else, but I took up a hobby that was just for me, and I've been doing that ever since. Well, kind of ever since. There's been a few breaks in there when things got a little bit crazy, but it is something that I have just for me. So here's some other ideas: are getting involved in a church or a social group, setting aside time for exercise. So think about one small thing that you maybe want to learn. Maybe you can't go to take a pottery class. Maybe that's just not in the cards right now, or going out and taking a class. But is there something that you can learn online? Do you want to learn how to knit? You can do that online. Just something that's for you, that's unrelated to your child. All right, and then we talked about, we're not very good at asking and accepting for help. But this is another tool, asking and accepting help. We have a very hard time asking for help because we don't want to be a burden on other people. We want to take care of ourselves, and sometimes we think that our way is the best, and sometimes it is the best, but sometimes other ways are okay too. And sometimes we need to allow other ways so that we can take care of ourselves. So make a list of small things that people can do for you. Like, it doesn't have to be something big. I think sometimes we think when we're asking for help, we're gonna ask for this gigantic thing. But if we have a lot of people doing little things for us, then that can really help free up some time so we can take care of ourselves. Even if it's just someone picking up something at the grocery store for you, listening to you vent over coffee, taking your child for a walk once a week, helping your child with their homework, so you can have a break, even getting new recipe ideas. There's lots of ideas of things that you can do that other people can help you with. And we talked about how we don't like to ask for help. We like to do it on our own because sometimes we feel helpless when we ask for help. But one thing that I like to remember is when I like to help other people, and when I help other people, it makes me feel, it helps me feel fulfilled. It makes me feel fulfilled. So when I allow someone else to help me, I'm really helping them too, because now they get to have that feeling of fulfillment by helping me. So just keep that in mind when you're asking for help, is that other people do want to help. They want to be a part. They want to be able to support you. So when you're asking for help, also, just a few things, consider their abilities and ask for things that might match up to their abilities. I mean, don't ask me to come fix your car, but if you need to ask me to make you a dinner, I can totally do that. So just think about abilities and obviously think about timing. We don't want to ask someone whose child is also in the hospital if they can help us with something. So just be cognizant of that. And then this is an idea that someone else had that I thought was great, just making a checklist of your week, everything that you need to get done. And then when people offer, you just show them the checklist and they can pick which thing works best for them and just say, oh, this is my checklist of stuff I have to get done this week. If there's anything in here that you can help with, that would be great. And that way you're not having to feel like you're coming. Well, I think when a lot of people ask, is there anything I can do? We don't know what to say. Like, I don't know. I mean, so if you have the checklist ahead of time, you can just be, yes, there is something you can do. Here's the list. If there's anything on there that you can help me with, that would be great. Okay, and then learning to find joy in our situation. Sometimes I feel like we may look negatively, or other people may look negatively on our situations. And that's not the reality. We know that that's not the reality. And there's lots of joy in our situations. One of the greatest things is gratitude. Sometimes, like I said, it's hard to find gratitude, especially if you're maybe in the hospital with your child. What can you be grateful for? But there's something that we can be grateful for every day. I know sometimes, it's just that your child is here that we can be grateful for. Letting go of resentment. Don't compare your child or your situation to others. The grass is not always greener on the other side. And this comes back to social media and shutting up about your perfect kid. And we have to realize that that perfect kid that we see people posting about is not as perfect as you think. And sometimes we can find joy in the fact that, like, I guess one thing that I have thought about is, especially at the point I am in my life right now, I have friends who all their kids are going off, going to college, and they're becoming empty nesters. And suddenly you see that, like, oh, well, that's never going to be me. That's not going to ever be me. And so that can be hard to think about. But sometimes I can find gratitude in the fact that their kids are going off, but I have a 25-year-old who will snuggle with me every single day. And that's something to be grateful for. And so the grass is a little green on my side too. So, and then taking life one day at a time and focusing on the joys your child brings into your life. When I think about way far into the future, especially when my kids were little, when I would think about where we are now, it would be hard. I was like, what is my life going to look like 20 years down the road when I still have my children living with me? And, it looks pretty good. Look pretty good. But it was hard to look down the road thinking the what if. But as long as I took it one day at a time, then we can find joy and happiness in that day. I didn't have to look 10 years down the road because we're not 10 years down the road right now. Just in today, what can I find joy in today, and what can I be grateful for today with my child? All right, now just
Well done.
Oh.
Okay, so social media, it can be a lifeline. There's something on the screen, Curtis, can you tell me what's happening?
We need Pete.
I do need to, you know. I wanna get that off the screen. Thank you. Okay, so, an example would be our 11Q Facebook group, our JF Facebook group, blogs from other parents, that have a child with a disability. I think those are all wonderful ways to use social media because we are not located near each other. And unfortunately, you know, it's such a rare disorder. Autism right now seems to be the disability du jour. You know, that is what gets all the attention, all of the money. No one's ever heard of Jacobson syndrome, and the people that tell you that are lying because they haven't. They think they've heard of it, right? I can't, if I had $1, every time, oh yeah, I've heard of that, and I'm like, how, like, because I never heard of it, and, you know, anyway. So, I think though, having those groups, it's almost a reason to join social media, in my opinion, because it's a way where if you have a concern or a question, you can actually, you have a direct line to the real experts, like Ryan was saying. The people who have lived it, who have gone before you, who are in the trenches right now, dealing with similar, you know, concerns and issues and worries, things that, you know, your family, your friends, you know, local people in the community really maybe don't understand some of the worries that we have. But this family, we understand. But it doesn't have to be directly related to Jacobson syndrome or 11Q disorder. You know, the parent of a child with Down syndrome or the parent of a child with, you know, some other rare disorder can absolutely understand what you're going through. They may not have the exact same, you know, symptoms and everything, but they can definitely understand. So I would really encourage you to join those groups or to find a blog that is helpful. You know, I follow some bloggers that have children with autism because, again, it's so common. And I do find a lot of similarities in things that they're worried about and dealing with and, you know, concerns that I have. So I also wanted to talk about siblings because really there's a lot of research and focus out there on how we as parents and caregivers need support. And often siblings are left out of this conversation, and I think that's a huge mistake because they are living this life as well. You know, they didn't have a choice in it. They were born into the family, they were adopted into the family, they are in the family. And so now they also have a very different life in many ways, and it's worth really acknowledging that with them and giving them the same tools that we would have. So something like a sibling support group, locally, you might be able to find something like that. Again, it may be a different disability. You know, I used to participate in one years ago, and it was for siblings of children with autism, but I'm sure, you know, you would be welcomed into something like that because of the similarities. Individual counseling is worth looking into. There are books out there, not many, so I think that's an untapped market if someone wants to, you know, get started on a second career as a writer, to give that experience of what our kids are going through having a sibling with a disability. In many ways, they may have worries that they don't share with you because they see that you're worried and they don't want to add to your worry by admitting what their concerns are. Also, they may feel that, you know, their worry isn't important because you have more serious worries, but their worries are valid. And sometimes what they're imagining is far worse than what's actually going on. So I think sometimes transparency with regard to, you know, keeping in mind how old they are and what they can handle, but letting them know, because I know sometimes my kids will worry that it's far worse than what is actually happening. You know, another thing that siblings can do is keep in touch with some of the siblings from the conference that they've met. You know, it seems like, if they have a cell phone or an email, or if they play, I don't know, Minecraft or Fortnite, there are ways to connect with other people that they can keep these friends that they've met at the conference. And then going forward, they always have someone that they know understands what it's like to live in a house that's not, completely like all of their friends' houses. And another thing would be meeting siblings in your community. I think could be really helpful so that they know they're not alone in having this experience at home. I think it's also really important to demystify disability. So talk to your other children about their siblings' disability. And, you know, for us, we've always talked about Jacobson syndrome at home. It's not something that we kept under the rug. My kids knew what it was called. They knew what the chromosome was before they even knew what a chromosome was. And we just, the fact is, my son looks different. So people stare in the community, you know, or they kind of give a double take. It's something that I wanted my kids to have a word for always. And I also wanted my son to know that it is a perfectly normal thing that happens in the world, that there's nothing, you know, we call it an abnormality and everything, but it's a perfectly natural part of life, that people have disabilities. That's always existed and always, you know, will exist. So I think it's important for them to have the words to use, to acknowledge inconsistencies or differences in the family. There are times when expectations are different. A common thing I hear is, why is he getting TV? He didn't do his chores yet, you know, that sort of thing. And so I will acknowledge, yes, this doesn't feel fair to you, 10-year-old. But what I want you to know is that I need to get dinner on the table, and he doesn't have a way to keep himself busy. You can go read a book. You can go do Legos. Those things don't really work for him. I need him to stay busy so I can do this, so he is getting TV time. It's not fair, you're right. I'll acknowledge that, but this is the way it's going to happen right now. So I think sometimes, you know, we don't want to acknowledge that maybe things from a 10-year-old's perspective don't feel fair. But I think it's important to let them know, you're right. It's not fair, but it's also not fair that he doesn't know how to do X, Y, or Z that you do know how to do. And he can't keep himself busy. So this is how we're going to do it for today. I also think it's helpful to practice responses to intrusive or rude comments from strangers or even friends. So there are times when, you know, at the playground, when I've heard words come out of kids' mouths that actually kind of trigger rage in me. And I'm really not kidding with that word. I've never felt like rage before, like when people will comment on, you know, my son's appearance, or, you know, why he's doing a certain thing or making a certain noise. And I really had to practice, because if I went with my initial, like, I'd wind up in jail or something. You know, you have to like really practice it, but it's also helpful to give your kids things to say. Because if you don't, how many of us in the moment are good with a comeback, and then later you have 20 things you could have said? So it's helpful to practice it in advance, because it's not if it will happen, it's when it will happen. And it could be, like I said, something about the way they're behaving, or if they're singing, or, you know, making a sound, or, you know, they look older, and so you expect more, but then when they do something that's atypical, like suddenly everyone's like staring at you, and, you know, it's uncomfortable to feel the stares on your back. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes it. But unfortunately, we're in a position where it happens. So we need to plan for it and prepare and have things to say. And, you know, I like to remind my own children to say things like, oh, well, yeah, you know, he does look a little different, but he's the same on the inside. You know, he has feelings. and he can hear you and he understands English. You know, and we'll say things like that to remind them that, it's really not kind to look at someone and just make a snap judgment about them based on, you know, what's happening in this quick moment. Let's please, you know, give him the courtesy that you would want. If you're having a bad moment, do you want everyone to stare at you and judge you in that moment? Of course you don't. So please give that same courtesy, you know, to our sibling or our son as it may be. Okay. So that is pretty much it, I think. Let me see, I have some notes written down too. But really, like I said, I think that there are times when things are not completely fair at home, you know, and my son definitely gets the lion's share of my attention, even though he is the oldest. And I love a lot of the suggestions Lindsay was talking about, you know, about exercise, taking a walk. And, you know, I find that that's good for our kids as well. Like they need movement too. We forget about that. And so sometimes my son will need a walk and I need a walk. So he'll come with me. I walk the dog every day, except it turns into a talk. And I'll say, Pete, this is a walk, not a talk, because he will literally talk for the entire 45 minutes. And when I go on the walk, see the dog and I, we don't talk. We just walk. And it's unbelievable that a person can talk straight through for 45 minutes about things that, you know, are not relevant to me or of interest to me. And sometimes I just tune him out and keep walking, and he'll say, are you listening? Did you hear what I just say to you? And I'm like, no, I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. So tell me again. And then I try to, you know, be more present with him. But it's hard to, you know, I'm always thinking like we all need the exercise. So let's hit two birds with one stone. And then I forget that like, no, it's actually my quiet time. And it's actually, you know, like I said, the dog sometimes is my favorite person in the house because she's always happy to see me when I come home. She just listens. If I want to talk, she doesn't talk back. I mean, it's really unbelievable. If you don't have a dog, I highly recommend it. But anyway, I think it's really important, like Lindsay was saying, that we do prioritize our needs as well. Don't forget about the siblings because they also have needs, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're juggling a lot, but we want to make sure that we're trying to get them also to a place of acceptance and understanding, and, you know, that it's okay that our life doesn't look like what their friend on the street, you know, looks like, and their cousin or whoever else, that, you know, different is okay. What was our shirt a couple of years ago?
Why fit in when you were born to stand out?
Yeah, why fit in when you were born to stand out? So that is it. I think we're going to have a lunch.
Yeah, we just need to, yeah, we'll have a lunch break.
Get your kids.
Get your kids
Speak
from.
of the devil, would you look who's here? Look at you.
About the time zone.
Great.
All right, so you can get your kids from the childcare and then go out the end door. If you don't have a key to the Saver Suite, someone can keep the door open so that we can get